Today, we're tackling something we've all faced. Those really intense, high-stakes disagreements. You know the ones where it feels like there's just no way out. We're going to try and map out a guide for getting through that tricky territory. So, have you ever felt like that? Trapped in an argument with absolutely no way out? It's like being stuck in a maze, a labyrinth of conflict, right? Every single turn just leads to another dead end. But here's the thing, what if that feeling of being trapped, what if it actually starts right inside our own heads? All right, let's get right into it. The first piece of this puzzle is actually what's happening inside our brains. Because, when the pressure's on and the stakes are high, our brains can literally get hijacked. So say hello to your amygdala. Think of it as your brain's own little smoke detector. It's always on, always scanning for threats. And here's the kicker. It doesn't really care if the threat is a real physical danger or just a really heated argument. When it senses danger, bam, it can trigger what's called an amygdala hijack. And that is an instant, totally overwhelming emotional response that just takes over. So what does that feel like? Well, your whole system just gets flooded with stress hormones. We're talking cortisol and adrenaline. This chemical cocktail basically hits the off switch on your prefrontal cortex. That's the logical, rational part of your brain. So in that moment, your brain isn't thinking clearly. It's in full-on survival mode. And when you're in survival mode, what happens? You default to one of three super ancient instincts. You've heard of them: fight, flight, or freeze. In a conflict, fight looks like competing, trying to win no matter what. Flight? That's just avoiding the whole thing. And freeze? Well, that often turns into accommodating, just giving in to make the uncomfortable situation go away. You can see right here how these deep-seated biological responses shape how we handle conflict. That adrenaline surge, it pushes us towards competing, creating a win-lose situation. And that constant need to avoid, that can lead to chronic stress. Accommodating might feel safe in the moment, but you end up ignoring your own needs. But look at the flip side, collaboration. That requires a calmer brain state, one that can actually boost oxytocin, the trust hormone. And that's what opens the door to real win-win solutions. It's why managing your own biology is step one to managing any conflict. Okay, so if our own brains are what get us lost in this labyrinth in the first place, how in the world do we find our way out? Well, the good news is there are maps. Let's take a look at 4 different paths to resolution, 4 frameworks for mediation. Path number 1, and probably the one you're most familiar with, is called facilitative mediation. In this model, the mediator is basically a neutral guide. They're not there to give you the answers, they manage the process. The whole philosophy here is that you are the expert on your own life and your own conflict. The mediator just helps you talk it out and find your own solution. Next up, we have a more hands-on approach, evaluative mediation. This is where the mediator is usually a subject matter expert, often a former judge or a lawyer. They're not just guiding, they're evaluating. They'll tell you the strengths and weaknesses of your case and might even predict how things would shake out in court. The main goal here, settle the case and do it efficiently. Now, path 3 is pretty different. With transformative mediation, the agreement itself isn't even the main goal. It's all about the relationship. The mediator acts more like a coach for your interaction. They focus on empowering each of you and helping you genuinely recognize the other person's point of view. The idea is to transform a breakdown in communication into a real moment of connection and growth. And our 4th path is narrative mediation. This one is fascinating. It views conflict as a story that people have gotten stuck inside. So the mediator becomes a kind of co-author. They help you step outside that story, separate yourself from the problem, and then work with you to co-create a totally new, preferred narrative for your future. It's all about changing the story. So no matter which of these paths you're on, you're going to need some tools to navigate the terrain, right? Well, the Harvard Negotiation Project came up with an amazing toolkit based on 7 core elements. Think of this as your compass, something you can use on any of those 4 paths to help turn a fight into a real collaboration. All right, let's break down this toolkit. It's got 7 crucial parts. First, you have interests. That's the why behind what you're asking for. Then alternatives, which is your plan B, your best case scenario if you walk away. Relationships, that's about the long game. Options are all the creative ideas you can come up with together. Legitimacy means using fair, objective standards to judge those options. And the foundation for all of this, solid communication and a clear final commitment. Now, this right here, the difference between positions and interests, might be the single most important idea in all of negotiation. Seriously. A position is the thing you say you want. It's the demand, like, I want my money back. But the interest is the reason why you want it. Maybe it's not about the money at all. Maybe it's, I feel disrespected. Getting from the what to the why, that's where all the magic happens. That's how you find solutions you never thought were possible. Okay, but what happens when things get really heated? When someone is just spiraling? Well, you use your ear. This is such a great little tool for de-escalating. First, empathy. I can really hear how upset you are. Then give them your full attention. Tell me more about it. And finally, show them respect. I really respect the effort you've put into this. Notice you're not agreeing with them. You're just validating their feelings. And sometimes that's all it takes to calm the storm. Of course, conflict doesn't happen in a vacuum. Our world is more connected than ever, and that brings a whole new set of challenges to the table. Let's touch on a couple of these modern complexities. Culture, for one, is huge. It completely shapes how we communicate. In what we call high-context cultures, so much is unsaid. It's all about nonverbal cues and relationships. Being too direct can be seen as disrespectful. But in low-context cultures, it's the opposite. People want you to be clear, direct, and get straight to the point. A great mediator has to be able to navigate both worlds. And something else that's so important to recognize is that people often come into these situations carrying invisible wounds from past trauma. That's where a trauma-informed approach is absolutely essential. It's all about creating a sense of safety and control. Things like giving people choices about where they sit or when to take a break, creating a predictable structure, and understanding that big emotional reactions are often rooted in fear. It's about restoring agency and building trust. And as our understanding of human emotion gets more sophisticated, so does our technology. Get this. AI is now being used to analyze mediations, and its ability to read emotional states just from the way people talk, it's reached an incredible 93.2% accuracy. That's just wild. So what does that mean in the real world? Well, it means a huge boost in efficiency. Look at this chart. A traditional mediation for a complex issue might drag on for over 6 days. But with AI helping out, that can be cut down to just over 2 days. We're talking about a resolution time that's slashed by roughly 2/3. That's a game changer. So when you put it all together, the psychology, the practical tools, the new technology, where does it all lead? Well, it suggests that maybe we need to start thinking about mediation not just as a legal process, but as something much more fundamental. And that brings us to what's called the mediation paradox. It's this strange situation where we know mediation is faster, we know it's cheaper, and we know it's way better for relationships than going to court. And yet, for some reason, it's still way underutilized. It's on the sidelines instead of being a go-to option. But when you get right down to it, mediation is really about one thing. It's an act of humanization. It's a process that's specifically designed to cut through the noise and the anger, and, as the quote here says, to transform a confrontation into a conversation. So the bottom line is this. In a world that feels more and more fractured, the skills we've been talking about, really listening, digging for interests, creating solutions together, these aren't just for mediators. They're essential skills for all of us. They're life skills. And that really leaves us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? How do we start building more of these bridges?